Here's Channel 4 roasting an Israeli spokesman.
First of all, is the Israeli government apologising to the families of the aid workers killed, including the 3 families in Britain?
Well, firstly, thank you, Krishnan, for having me on. From the Prime Minister to the Defence Minister to the spokesman for the Israel Defence Forces, all of us have expressed grief about this occurrence.
Yes, but are you apologising?
To be frank, if you let me answer, Krishnan, there's no point attacking me already. I've just arrived, for heaven's sake.
I'm not attacking you. I'm just asking you a simple question. I want an answer to it.
No, you are.
Are you apologising?
And allow me to answer. We have expressed grief about this operation, but we need to find out exactly what has happened. The Prime Minister, as he came out of hospital today, the Defence Minister, and
Yeah. It was just we got caught in the wind. We got caught pissing in the wind with our pants down. Listen, our ethnic cleansing campaign that has been consistent since October 8th took a brief sidestep and did a little too much ethnic cleansing, not realizing that the ethnicity that we were cleansing were actually valuable people in the eyes of the Western world. Americans, Australians, white people. So that's a little bit of a oopsie, but like, honestly, how can you fault us? You guys literally don't say much when we kill 30,000 plus Palestinians. It's our expectation that you would let us have this one as well. You know, it's come on. Just like, what's a few? A couple. Just let me have this.
Minister Gallant have all expressed grief. Indeed, there is a sense of grief across the whole country because WKD are one of the good guys.
But you said this was unintentional. So this was a mistake, wasn't it? So you can apologise already. You don't need to know the precise details to issue an apology.
Clearly,
there are grieving families tonight.
There are grieving families, and we grieve with them because clearly something catastrophic has happened. Clearly something catastrophic has happened. It's not something that we wanted, and we're going to get to the bottom of this and find out exactly what happened, because the role of bringing aid to innocent Gazans, to ordinary Gazans, not to Hamas, to the genocidal terror organization Hamas, that role is sacrosanct to us. We've got no beef with the people of Gaza, ordinary people. We're trying to get as much aid as we possibly can.
I mean, it's not sacrosanct.
The dilemma,
saying things like you're trying to get as much aid as possible is just not true, because only a few days ago, the UN's highest court, the ICJ, ordered Israel to, without delay, facilitate humanitarian aid. And tonight, a ship laden with tons of aid is sailing away, and humanitarian organizations are saying it is simply too dangerous for them to carry on supplying aid because you kill their aid workers. So it is just not true to say it's sacrosanct.
It absolutely is sacrosanct, because before this war, which we didn't want or didn't ask for, there were about 70 aid trucks of food alone going into Gaza. Just today, there were 243 on an average.
Those numbers are disputed.
No, they're not disputed. They're facts, Krishnan. And we can.
This dude was literally a member of the Labor Friends of Israel and now works with the Israeli government. I mean, yeah.
No, they're not, because the UN said that before the war, there were 500 trucks going into Gaza and around 150.
Krishnan, I'm talking about food now. We're not sending in cement anymore.
Anyway, I don't want to argue about the numbers of trucks. I'm not asking you about trucks. I'm talking about the fact
to build a terror network. Concrete has been used to build.
We're not talking about that either right now. We're talking about
because you talked, Krishnan, about the aid trucks. We're saying that we're talking about food. There were 70 before the war. Today there were 240.
Well, again, I must say the 70 before the war is a disputed number.
Those are the facts, Krishnan.
Well, it's not a fact. It's a disputed. It's a claim, and it's disputed. And there are contradictory. There are contradictory numbers.
I say is disputed.
Let's move on to the fact.
I mean, because you're saying wrong things. Everything I say is disputed. It's like, yeah, because you're lying. What do you mean? It's the whole point. You came up here and you're like, hey, ethnic cleansing campaign. I mean, don't call it that, of course. In the open air prison, don't call it that either. We have clearly sent enough aid to the Palestinian dogs. I mean, I meant there's enough aid going into the Strip. And it's like, yeah, you're wrong because you're wrong. What do you want him to say? Be like, oh, no, you're right.
We are a democratic country with a free press.
We are democratically controlling the ethnic cleansing campaign. Have you seen the polls? Yeah, it's sick. Yeah, we're a democratic country. No, dude, you also don't have free press. You literally, the Israeli Knesset yesterday banned Al Jazeera. What the Everything he's saying is wrong. Literally everything he's saying is incorrect. Dude, Israeli officials tell the truth challenge. Impossible difficulty. It's a fun game to try to find one truthful thing that an Israeli official will say in Western news. One truthful thing. This has been 3 minutes and 18 seconds of everything he just said is a lie.
And with checks and balances. And, you know, at some point, you've got to take our side over a genocidal terrorist organization.
We don't take anyone's sides. We're journalists
UNRWA,
asking questions. Now, the next question
which is
about...
the right thing to do, Krishnan.
The next thing I wanted to ask you about is the 196 other aid workers who have been killed in Israeli streets.
Yeah, it's not just like the last batch of like white aid workers that Israel killed. They've killed 100 plus before then, which he's going to be like, well, they're Palestinians, so they're Hamas. You know this.
Strikes. Are you also going to investigate them in the same way?
Look, every civilian death is a catastrophe. But, the point of this whole operation is to focus on Hamas and to get our hostages out. Any aid worker, genuine aid worker, of which WCK were, WCK are one of the good guys in this war because the dilemma...
Yeah, one of the good guys, because we were using them to do propaganda, not the bad guys. Not the... Dude, WCK is one of the good guys in this war, and not like those other humanitarian or aid organizations that are the bad guys. That's what he's saying. Please understand the words that are coming out of this mouth is that some humanitarian aid workers are the bad guys, which he means UNRWA, by the way.
The dilemma that we face is that aid workers themselves actually participated.
Do you accept that they are aid workers?
Aid workers themselves from UNRWA, for example.
No, we're not talking about UNRWA. I'm asking you about Médecins Sans Frontières. Are they a recognized aid agency in your mind?
I don't have any information on MSF to share with you, so I can't speak to that point. But I want to share with you the dilemma that we face here in Israel.
No, I want to keep asking you about some of these cases, because also in January there was the British charity Medical Aid for Palestinians that was hit. Is that being investigated?
I mean, they have Palestinian in the name. Do you not see? Man, have you gone mad, sir? Medical Aid for Palestine? Palestine does not exist. It is a terrorist entity. For the record, I do want to say something here. Very vindicated on the shit ton of research I did on the charities that we fundraised for, because like literally these are all, with the exception of WCK, like every single charity that we worked with is incredibly important for supplying aid to Palestinians in their worst moments, in their time of need. Israel keeps calling them terrorists and shooting them, but why, with the exception of WCK, run by a famous guy who I think was like saying a lot of pro-Israel stuff after October 7, and also working in collaboration with the Israeli government in a way that isn't like all of these charities that I have that we fundraise for. They all work with the Israeli government. They have to, right? They would not be able to operate if they didn't. But WCK openly was like working alongside the Israeli government, I think, and the Israeli government was using them as an example of like, this is a good charity and not a bad charity like UNRWA. The founder of the NGO is a Spaniard cook, and the killing has been on every news channel here in Spain today. Also, the same founder asked the ministry who said what's happening is a genocide to resign last year. People are starting to open their eyes now. Yeah, Jose Andres was one of the good ones, and look at how they dealt with his organization. No, they didn't kill Jose Andres, dude. Are you kidding me?
Again, I don't have any information on that case. I, from my memory banks, will tell you that medical aid for the Palestinians, I think, have been investigated by the Charity Commission in the UK itself for the misuse of funds. So that's probably not the best example, but this expresses the dilemma.
I said he was one of the good ones, not because he got killed. I said was as in because he's obviously going to be very critical of Israel going forward, considering that Israel blew up one of his humanitarian aid convoys with multiple of his humanitarian aid workers. I suspect that he's not going to turn around and still continue this whole like, oh man, actually Israel's not doing a genocide. How dare you say that type shit?
Which we're facing here in Israel. We're trying to get aid using genuine partners, which we believe that WCK are a genuine partner, trying to ensure that Hamas does not steal the aid, loot these trucks, and get it to the people that need it. There's one...
Yes, that's why we blew it up. We blew it up because we did not want Hamas to take advantage of the aid convoy.
Thing you can be sure of, that unfortunately, is that there's no one hungry in Hamas. We're trying to get as much aid as we possibly can because we have no beef with ordinary Palestinians. We're trying to get to Hamas to finish off this war so that we can return to peace and, most importantly, de-radicalize Gaza. Gaza has a right.
Yeah, Jose was saying a month ago how Israel has a right to defend itself and shouldn't stop the war. He's singing a different tune now that Israel killed his friends. The 3 British citizens killed by Israel last night were British intelligence officials. Wait, what are you talking about? How do you know that? Where is this coming from?
Finally, just before you go, can I ask you as a matter of fact, did Israel bomb the Iranian consulate in Syria?
So I've got no comment on that, but what I can share with you is that Daniel Hagari said quite clearly that it wasn't a civilian embassy. It was a military base for
Yeah, dude, you don't understand. You don't get it. This was a very different type of embassy. Bro, you blew up the embassy compound. What the do you mean? It wasn't a civilian embassy. It was a Hamas embassy.
Quds. So while I can't
but you're not going to
deny
admit
no, as I said, that was a military base for the Al-Quds force. Iran, unfortunately, once again trying to destabilize this region, not for the good.
Yeah, not Israel.
Of the Palestinian people, not for the good of the Arab world at large, but just to destabilize this region. We're trying to go for peace. We're trying to go for coexistence, but we need to get.
I'm sorry, David. I've got to cut you off there because I mean I'm just trying to get answers to questions, and if you can't answer the question, then I can't allow you to do the propaganda bit afterwards. But David Mencer, thank you very much indeed.
You're such a sweetheart. You're such a sweetheart.
Yeah, I can't believe that there were military personnel inside of the embassy, guys. Shocking revelation. This just in, there were Iranian military personnel inside of the Iranian embassy compound. This is very shocking news. How could they do such a thing? Good for this journalist, kind of got his balls back. No, this guy's been ripping into Israel defenders nonstop. Here, the only part of this Bernie Sanders take that I was going to cover, where is it? Air Mate said, Senator Sanders says here that it's absolutely true that Hamas started this war. Is Bernie aware that on October 6th, Israel was occupying and besieging Gaza? Like, he's...
Gaza overnight, and World Central Kitchen now suspending its relief efforts there after 7 aid workers were killed in an Israeli strike. You wrote on Twitter this morning that Israel has killed more than 400 aid workers in 6 months. That's not an accident. You write no more aid for Netanyahu's war machine. Forgive me, 200 aid workers killed in the last 6 months. So what should the U.S. do?
Anna, what's going on in Gaza now is one of the worst humanitarian disasters in the modern history of the world. I mean, we're talking about the possibility of hundreds of thousands of children and others starving to death.
Syrians do not care about the Iranian embassy, just FYI. Wait, I don't give a whether Syrians care about the Iranian embassy or not. What the do you mean? An embassy is technically foreign soil of a foreign nation. Yeah, dude, it's a dramatic escalation. Oh, Syrians don't care about the Iranian embassy being struck by Israel? Okay, then I guess it's fine. It's not fine.
And it's absolutely true that Hamas, a terrorist organization, started this war. But
yeah, dude, totally. Hamas started this war in 1948. 1947, Hamas definitely existed.
It is also true that right now, what Israel is doing is fighting not just Hamas, but going to war against the entire Palestinian people. And this World Central Kitchen horror is just one part of what the Netanyahu war machine is doing. And in my view, the United States should not be giving another nickel to Israel to continue.
Consequence of IRI actions in Syria, but this is a different situation. No, that's not a consequence of IRI actions in Syria. That's ridiculous. They didn't strike a base, they struck the embassy compound. Even if they were to strike a military base, right? If the IRGC commander was at a military base and they struck it on different soil, you're still opening yourself up to more fronts on the war, but it doesn't matter. No, it was a base. The real embassy is hiding behind it, probably. It's funny how when they're criticizing Israel's actions, they necessarily have to blame Hamas instantly after that. Yeah. I have personally refused to watch Bernie Sanders clips since October 7 because it just like breaks my hard.
This terrible war against the Palestinian people.
If you could sit down face to face with Netanyahu today, what would you say to him?
Stop murdering innocent people. 2/3 of the people who have been killed, the over 32,000 people who have been killed, Anna, are women and children.
My problem with this rhetoric, once again, is that like it's not how Israel is conducting itself in this siege that is the problem. That's definitely a problem, but the problem is much larger than that. And I always like every time Bernie talks about it, it always makes me feel feel like he's trying to say like, oh no, if they weren't conducting themselves like this, then it would be fine. So when and how does Israel become a problem for the Western world for them to do something about this genocide machine? Clearly thousands of brown people dying doesn't bother any power that can actually do something. I don't know. His opinion is still better than most of the Israeli left. No, not the Israeli left, Israeli liberals. But that's a crazy fucking take, because I don't know if you know this, but Bernie Sanders is from Vermont. He is not the senator from Israel. He is the socialist senator from Vermont, which last time I checked was in the United States of America. So yeah, of course, I don't expect him to be better than the Israeli left. That's a given. And no, he's not better than the Israeli left, because if you were here, I interviewed an actual Israeli leftist, an anti-Zionist Knesset member, Ofer Kasif, who literally reached out to Bernie Sanders' office many times leading up to October 7, and it fell on deaf ears. He reached out to his office after October 7, and Bernie wouldn't take his calls. So no, he's not to the left of the Israeli left at all. This is a mischaracterization of the Israeli left. Something to consider for many people. It's just like what I always say. If you want to understand what the is going on in Gaza, Israeli news sources are literally better than Western news sources for the most part. Mainstream Israeli news sources actually actively conduct investigations into the IDF. And these are not like anti-Zionist news sources either. I'm talking about Haaretz. Why Bernie changed his views? No, he's not. I don't think he changed his views. He's always been a little bit wishy-washy when it comes to American foreign policy. No, others have conducted investigations as well. Ynet has conducted investigations. Like, I'm talking about like center-right publications, because ultimately, not true, Israeli news sources do not show Palestinians even speak. No, I'm not talking about Palestinians. I'm talking about Israeli culture, Israeli society, the IDF operations. Israeli news sources are better at covering Israel and are more critical of covering Israel than American news sources are. This is 100% true, even though these are literally Zionist publications with anti-Zionist writers, of course, like Gideon Levy writes for Haaretz. There's plenty of they have a bunch of dog shit articles in general, but it's something to remember. If you want to get a better assessment of what the is going on with like the Israeli military conduct, misconduct, operations in general, events that pertain to October 7, the mishandling of the military, security issues within the military, ignoring the warning signs, Haaretz, Ynet, like all of these articles, even J-Post does a better job of covering those issues than Western publications do.
This is inexcusable.
Listen to Palestinians. Thanks for this take.
And we're talking about 70% of the housing units in Gaza that have been destroyed or damaged. We're talking about 1.8 million people who have been displaced, thrown out of their homes. We're talking about people who today don't have food, don't have water, don't have medical supplies, don't have fuel. It is horrible. It is inexcusable. And it's got to end right now. And the United States cannot continue to be complicit in the horror that is taking place there.
By the way, okay, here's sad news. Our team has determined that at this point, the risk of actively delivering aid to Gaza is far too great. The decision was not made lightly. Please visit our website for FAQs. After 6 months of constant bombing and flagrant violation of international law, and with consultation from our Gaza team, UNRWA has concluded it is best to pause our operations as it stands. Currently, delivering aid puts not just humanitarian workers at risk, but also those who are receiving the aid. Our team in Gaza has determined that at this point, the risk of actively delivering aid is far too great. So congratulations to Israel. You did it again. Okay? You done did it. You goofs. You goofed. Where is it?
Across Israel, protesters are growing.
Oh, here, I wanted to show this as well. This was the last part of the IDF attack in the humanitarian aid convoy. Let's finish off this
global
part.
affairs analyst Barak Ravid. Barak, thanks for being with us. Great to see you. I want to ask about the result of this airstrike on the World Central Kitchen humanitarian aid workers. Yoav Gallant, the Israeli defense minister, alerted Israeli defense forces to, quote, maintain an open and transparent line of communication with international organizations like the WCF. He also ordered the creation of a joint situation room to try to coordinate distribution of aid in Gaza. I'm surprised those things weren't happening already.
Well, the problem with this incident was not miscoordination. The problem is also that there was no line of communication. That was not what happened. The movement movement of this convoy was coordinated with the IDF. This convoy moved on a road that is a humanitarian corridor that the IDF knows that cars that are driving on this road are carrying humanitarian aid. The IDF is a partner of the World Central Kitchen in its work in Gaza. It gives security to the boat that is coming from Cyprus and delivering the aid. It's not some rogue group that started delivering aid in Gaza. It was all coordinated. And this is why the claim that this was quote unquote unintentional raises a lot of questions.
To that point, Barak, what are you hearing from your sources inside the Israeli government about the investigation that the world has been promised will come following this incident? The White House, through John Kirby, the spokesperson of the National Security Council, essentially said that he wants it to be thorough, he wants it to be transparent, and he wants accountability. Given what you just laid out, is that really possible?
Yeah, guys, they want accountability. They were like, oh, we really up. Oops, we did a little bit of a too much genocide, and then we ended up accidentally ethnically cleansing people that weren't that right ethnicity. So we'll just, do everything in our power to fix it.
I think, and I spoke to several U.S. and Israeli officials who were concerned that this investigation will result in the same result of many previous investigations. That there is an investigation, but at the end, it's nobody's fault. Okay, nobody knows who gave the order. Nobody did anything wrong. It was the aid workers that maybe killed themselves. And I think that I heard a lot of Israeli officials today that were highly frustrated by the fact that somebody in the IDF, most likely a very senior officer, at least a colonel, you need at least a colonel to approve such a strike. So somebody did approve it on a quite high level in the IDF. And there's a lot of frustration that such a thing happened when it's clearly against all the rules of engagement.
That is stunning. I'm wondering, Barak, among officials you've spoken with, is there significant concern that this kind of attack is going to further erode public sentiment and global support for Israel?
I think we're sort of like beyond that point by now. Obviously, it's not that this strike is going to improve Israel's image abroad, and obviously it's going to most likely increase the international pressure, especially because you have nationals from at least 4 countries that were killed in this incident. The Israeli ambassador to London was summoned. The Polish foreign minister called the Israeli foreign minister. The US, we heard what John Kirby said. So obviously it's going to increase the pressure on Israel. But I think what we saw in this incident, and we have to say it openly and directly, this shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. There were previous incidents with the same results, but there were no foreign nationals, so nobody cared, or people cared less. 3 Israeli hostages were killed by Israeli soldiers because of the exact same reason. There is not enough of respect and full implementation of the rules of engagement in Gaza by IDF soldiers.
The timing is also significant because, as you're pointing out, that there is increased pressure in at least the rhetoric coming from the White House. They recently announced this huge deal, the biggest deal for military aid, sending these fighter jets to Israel in the teens, billions of dollars for these fighter jets. So it doesn't seem like just the rhetoric is going to change the attitude of the IDF, right?
Again, I think the problem is that there's a disconnect between the IDF leadership that sits in the IDF headquarters and gives orders and procedures to the forces on the ground, and the forces on the ground and the field commanders who apparently are not fully implementing the orders. And I think this is something that we saw from day one of this war. We are 6 months in. It's not that there's no improvement. We see a deterioration in the way that the forces on the ground are not implementing the orders that they get from the IDF command.
Barak Ravid, always appreciate your expertise and your perspective on these matters. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
It reminds me of Moin Rabbani saying the airport is unorganized and Benny Moore saying, no, it's so organized. Yeah, listen, the trucks were 3-tapped over 2 kilometers and they had the WCK logo on them. It was a deliberate act and it doesn't matter. Israel's killed 200 plus humanitarian aid workers. This kind of reflexive defense from the State Department is exactly why they thought no one would care if they killed white people. That's it. That's my final say on the matter. They also told the IDF where they were as well. Yeah.
But the judge said
So
defendants'
what's the point of the
conduct
UN
is
if
deliberate.
they can demand a ceasefire yet and it clearly isn't happening and the UN do nothing? So are we paying them for what now? Does it really show that the world's true intentions are at least profiting and that's it? This needs to stop. I mean, yes. The point is, and I would not discount this, the point is applying pressure. Things are not going to change overnight and you can't stop applying pressure. It was unimaginable to call for a ceasefire literally 6 months ago. It was unimaginable to consider that what Israel is doing is a genocide 5 months ago, and people haven't stopped applying pressure. And slowly but surely, obviously with a shit ton of human lives being ripped apart, being destroyed by Israel, the world is opening up their eyes to the realities on the ground.